2. Folks, welcome back to So Bad It's Good, presented by Betches Media. Man, I am so excited to have our next guest today. It's one of those people that I've been nervous to reach out to for like a year and a half. And finally, Maritza, who I worked with, reached out on my behalf. And this dude is so insanely talented. Not only is he one of the best stand-ups out there, he is a writer with hopefully the upcoming Marvel's Armor Wars. And obviously, he's worked on The Carmichael Show and Girls. He's an actor, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and Showtime's excellent Black Monday. And now he is a director or co-director with the new film, The Gutter. This movie hit me at the right time. It takes place in this universe, but at the same time, it let me disassociate from our actual universe. This movie has an insanely good cast, which we will get into. But basically, the plot, you guys, is Walt is an unemployed underachiever who discovers he's amazing at bowling. He's encouraged by this barfly named Skunk, which played brilliantly by Darcy Carden. He launches a pro career to save the local bowling alley from foreclosure. This has shades of so many good films. Of course, a little Kingpin. I think there's I'm Gonna Get You Sucker in there somewhere. There's Sorry Not to Bother You. I thought some visual style was there. But anyways, I'm so excited to have Yassir Lester here. Thanks so much for being here, dude.
Dude, thank you for having me and lying on my behalf with all those compliments. Really means a lot.
That is not lying at all. I mean, listen, I watch a lot of stuff for this, and I was kind of like, okay, what are we getting into? And I already respected you from like all of these other things. And I got to tell you, I was like, oh, wow, this is like you and your brother who you co-directed this with, right?
Yeah. Yes.
You guys, like, I mean, it has its own sense of humor. Like, I don't like to say, oh, it's like Kingpin or it's like this, but I'm trying to get the audience to know like certain vibes of this. But I just wanted to say, first off, congratulations. And like, how did this all start? Like, when did you and your brother go, hey, let's direct and write like you wrote it, but let's direct a film together?
I mean, honest to God, like it really was just, I don't want to say circumstantial, but you know, I wrote this like as the world was shutting down late 2019, early 2020. And I just did it as a joke. Like I was just kind of frustrated in my career and like, you know, all the things that you named earlier, credits wise, like, look, I'm not, by no means am I ungrateful or any of that stuff, but I think as a creative, you kind of just wanted to like, you know, feel like you're doing your own thing from time to time. Also, I just really quick, I'm almost certain we have the exact same cardigan. If there's like a weird like Native American design on the back, mine is like baby blue. Yeah.
Yes,
yeah. It's a great cardigan. Now I say all that to say, I was kind of just like, I just want to like make something and do something. And I had the idea for The Gutter for a while. I tried to do it as like a TV pilot on my own. My wife, Chelsea Devontes, very accomplished actress.
Huge fan of Chelsea. She's been on this show a couple of times. Love her as well.
Okay. She's standing right next to me. She says hi.
Chelsea.
I'll tell her afterwards. Yeah, so I tried to like film it as a pilot on my own. Got a few dollars together. Everyone's like, this is stupid and it sucks. And I was like, okay. And then I just sat on it for a few years. And then Chelsea said, hey, I think you should like rework it. Maybe it's a movie. And so I did that. Like, it was terrible for everyone that the world shut down, but it was also the first time that people like read anything of mine in a long time. And so I sent it to the Gutter film script to a friend of ours, Jared Hess, who was an executive producer on this show me and my brother worked on called Making History. And
also the director of Napoleon Dynamite.
Yes, of course. I just assume people know. But he read it and loved it, and he was like, dude, you should do this. Like, you know, in doing Napoleon Dynamite, he was like, no one will ever understand your characters as much as you, so you do need to direct it. But like, I know it's not like your heart's desire to be like bogged down with directing. So like, your brother is a filmmaker. Your brother did go to film school. He has like the technical prowess and is also, you know, my brother worked on sitcoms forever as well. So he was like, you should just do it with your brother and you can like really be able to handle the things that you want to handle, vice versa. And I was like, oh my God, yeah. And so, you know, it took another 2 years to get people to say like, okay, here's some money. And then it took 2 years for it to come out after that. So it's been a process. It's really been since 2017, which is nuts.
I always try to explain to the audience that don't really know how things get put together, how long it takes for anything. Like, I mean, even popular things take a long time, but really things that you love or things that come from like, your own voice, it takes years and years. And there's so much commitment that goes into it. And I mean, good job on like not giving up throughout any of that. But then I was watching this and I was like, do you and your brother now, like, do you have a next film? I mean, we're going to talk about this film, but I'm like, are you guys now like a directing team?
It's interesting because like yes and no, in the sense that like if we find something together again to do it, we'll absolutely do it. But we also, we've have been separate entities for such a long time, and not in a bad way, just like he has different tastes than me and I have different tastes than him. So we really just said, like whatever the next thing is, whatever it's right for, if it's right for both of us or one of us singular, then we take the opportunity. Now that being said, I'd of course love to direct with him again. It was like surprisingly easy, and you hear all the stuff like don't work with family, don't work with friends, blah blah blah, but like I find that like if you are a good communicator and like stand on what you mean and mean what you stand on, like you really can get things done. And there were some things he was unwavering about, there were things that I was unwavering about, but we saw eye to eye. Even when we were unwavering, we saw what the other person was saying, and so we really like I loved it, and if he wants to do it again, I'm completely down. But if also he tells me like they're gonna let me go do Star Wars and they want me to do it alone, I'll go like, okay, cool.
Yeah, I was like, oh god, is your Matrix coming out? Are you the no Wachowskis?
Yeah. I mean, like, look, that of course, I'm a huge sci-fi nerd as is, so like if that ever comes our way, we're absolutely doing it. We'll be the Wachowskis, we'll be the Coens, we'll be the Farrellys, we'll be if we need to be LeBron and Bronny James, if we need to be a father-son duo, we'll do it, whatever it takes.
I mean, when you guys were discussing actually shooting this and then shooting this, what were the elements like visually? Like, were you like screening other films of like, oh, I love this from this, I love it, because you have some really interesting shots, especially even how you film the bowling scenes, and Shameik Moore, who is amazing in this, just with the way, like, he's like throwing the balls and the different like angles and stuff like that. What were you studying going into this as a first-time director?
Well, there was, and again, like not to be too pretentious, but there was surprisingly more than I think people realize. And when you actually go back and watch the film for the film itself versus just like the comedy of it, you kind of get some of those references. Color palette wise, we literally just took everything we could from Boogie Nights. Like it's just such a visually stunning movie, and we just we love the warmth of the browns and the oranges and the yellows, and like we really tried to like get in. Even like the blues in our film are muted and have like a little bit of that like 70s dinginess to them. Our DP Veronica Bozo is just like incredible, and working with our costume designer Melissa Walker and our production designer Maggie Reuter, like they really made sure that like that warmth came to life. Like you feel the warmth in Shameik's skin, you feel it in Darcy's skin, and Susan's, like, so that was very important to us in terms of like visual referencing and like the cinematography, I should say. But like we kind of came from everything. We came from Punch Drunk Love, from Wes Anderson, from Clueless, and I mean, like there's just Wayne's World. Like there's so many weird, and you mentioned one earlier, but like I'm gonna get you, sucker. Like there were so many things that we really wanted to, and even to your hat, like we were very interested in like using zooms in a way that they haven't really been used in a long time. Zoom lenses, like everyone is throwing everything on a dolly or on a steady cam and just kind of moving in. And, my brother Isaiah and Veronica, the DP, really came up with like these interesting uses of zoom lenses specifically for Susan Sarandon's character, that you kind of see nowhere else in the film except when we're emphasizing what she's doing and stuff like that. Like, like again, it's a comedy, it's goofy, it's stupid, it's weird, it's dumb.
But there's also that's all there. But I'm trying to explain to the audience. There's something like I geeked out on this hard
in there. Yeah.
Which, by the way, I don't mind being pretentious sometimes, especially when there's like somebody that actually cares about something.
Right.
That's not pretentious. That's like caring. I'm so
Yeah.
happy you brought up Paul Thomas Anderson. Yeah, which, by the way, the other thing that just blew me away is the cast you got for this. I mean, you mentioned Susan Sarandon, who plays Linda the Crusher Curson. I'm like, Susan Sarandon, Paul Reiser was like cracking my ass. Like, he was so funny in this. You have Shameik Moore, who you might know as the voice of Miles Morales on the Spider-Verse films. And he's like, I didn't realize how quirky funny he can be. Darcy Carden, of course. Paul Scheer, it was awesome to see him pop up. Chelsea Devontes playing a lesbian mom at the beginning. Amazing. Could you imagine? Like, this is a pretty damn good cast. How did you go about casting this thing?
Honest to God, like, like, you know, I kind of said it was like we were coming out of COVID in a weird way. And I think that also just like the state of what Hollywood was then and now, like, people are just looking to do things that are fun, that are interesting, that feels like they are being pushed in some way or get to do something different, you know? And like the truth of the matter is that we kind of just approach the people that we liked, that we thought would be good for this thing. You know, Shameik by the way, like, he looks like, so Walt, the character, is based on our cousin Walt, like almost verbatim. And Shameik has this weird, like, he has a weird innocence to him. Like, of course you see him like playing Raekwon on Wu-Tang and you're like, okay, this dude's a phenomenal actor. But like in real life, he's like a very sweet, kind of soft-spoken guy who's like into all the same things our cousin is. And, you know, when we met him, we're like, oh my God, it's him. Like, let's just hope he says yes. Same thing with Darcy, like, to the Paul Thomas Anderson of it all. We were kind of pitching her the story and what we felt like we could be doing in terms of like elevating the comedy of this. And we're like, you know, you really have to think of like Punch Drunk Love and like think about like how weird the Mattress Man is and like as a character, how weird Barry Egan / Adam Sandler is in that movie. And like, as we were telling her this, she literally lifted up a painting of Adam Sandler as Barry Egan, and she was like, this is like, you guys don't understand, it's my favorite movie, blah, blah, blah. And we're like, oh my God, like, it's her, she gets it, you know, like, because Skunk is a cross between essentially Barry Egan and then our sister. And we sent it to Susan. Like, we always knew it had to be a serious actress for the Linda Curson role, because like, and it is no shade to comedic actresses, but there's a difference between a comedic actress playing something comedically and a dramatic actress playing it dramatically. That makes it funny, you know? And like, Susan, like, I mean, she's just a powerhouse. And so like, we kept, you know, like, and I'll leave the actresses' names out of it, but we were like, this is the kind of serious actress we want. This is the kind of serious actress we want. And then weirdly, they were like, what about Susan Sarandon? And we were like, I mean, yeah, of course Susan Sarandon, but she's not gonna, you know what I mean? Like, she's not gonna read this thing. And she reads it, immediately hits us up and is like, I'm in New York City. I can meet between these 2 days at this specific time. Now's your chance. And we were like, oh my God. So we had to meet her like on the 4th of July at like 11 a.m. Like,
I mean, how bizarre in Hollywood is that already? It's like Susan Sarandon, but then on the 4th of July, you've got it. Like, that's like when you were growing up, you know, in Georgia, they were like, you could never have imagined I have to meet with Susan Sarandon on the 4th of July.
It doesn't. And like, here's the thing, like, and of all the people, and I've been very blessed and very lucky to have the career that I've had, but like, you know, when someone's like, you're about to meet Susan Sarandon, you're like, oh wait, now there's like a childhood thing that is like, you know, that like is about to be a core memory of mine unlocked or whatever, you know. So it was wild. And then our producer Liz Destro, who really pulled this film together in ways that like no one else could ever imagine or accomplish. She was like, I'm friends with Paul Reiser. I think he would be great as the bowling announcer. And we were like, I mean, yeah, but Paul Reiser's not going to do this. And every single person, I think they were all looking for excuses to say things that they actually wanted to say, but had never gotten a script that would let them say it. And now here they are.
Well, yeah, I mean, Paul Reiser has a line like "Black Lives Matter, it's bowling lives matter," right? Like, I was like, he is saying so many great lines in there that only Paul Reiser can do.
Yes.
But like, I was thinking of like some of the shots with Susan with the bowling ball, and like, there's a gravitas that Susan Sarandon brings to something where, you know, like you know, sketch comedians and stuff like that are amazing, but you watch her pick up a ball or just like a tight shot of like her lips or something that I was watching, and I was like, you just like. There are certain people that have some kind of like alchemy where they're just like, you're like, damn. I mean, that must be like really amazing to shoot.
Yeah. Well, that, and like she, you know, and I'll say this is our first time doing like, you know, directing together where there was like a budget, you know what I mean? So like, and it wasn't just like a bunch, like there still are a bunch of our friends in it, but you know, like it was like actors we had not worked with before, you know. First day of filming is when Shamik and Darcy met, you know, like it was just like,
wait, for the first time?
Yes. Weirdly, they had done a movie together like 8 years prior, but it was like a scene. But like for this film, like to be playing best friends, they had like not been around each other in literally 8 years. And we just scheduling wise, they couldn't do it. They were flying from like 2 different places, blah, blah, blah. So I say all that to say that like there was already so many challenges in terms of acting, but like Susan from the moment she signed on would call me and Isaiah or text us every single day and being like, and she always asked like what she would, or she would always say like, this is what I think like the bobblehead of this character would look like. So she would like have ideas for her costume, ideas for, I mean like I wrote in like maybe a scene of her smoking once, and she was like, I should have a cigarette the entire movie. We're like, okay, you know what I mean? And like that, but she makes these choices that you're like, they're like 4 chess moves ahead of you that you're just like, you can't comprehend what it is, and then you see it all come together and you're like, oh, this woman is like a genius. And it's not just like, oh, she's been in the industry and understands how it works and understands acting. You're like, this is again the reason why she has been in this industry and so successful for so long is because she's a genius. It's not the work didn't make her a genius. She was a genius who then applied that mindset to her work.
Yeah, there are certain people that just have that gift that you kind of like, you're like, damn, there's a reason why you are where you are. But I mean, it's got to be pretty wild when you're like, God, Susan can't stop texting me like every day. Susan's still like, it's like, dude, she's texting again.
It's the weird, like, you know, me and my brother joke about it all the time. Like in any other world, if we had Susan Sarandon's number, like we would be blocked. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like there's we'd be like harassing her, stalking her or something. But like in this version of reality, she likes us and reaches out to us and is like, when are we doing number 2? And we're like, you tell us, you know.
Oh my God. No, it really, I mean, it was like just hats off. And I wanted to also say this was done on a budget. Like this is a, you know, I mean, you can tell you probably had to make your days. You probably had to do like, you know, you were getting these shots and how you were even speaking about the shots. A lot of money goes into that. So you were having to probably cut corners right and left. And I don't think the film suffered any of that. Like, I just thought like you were able to still have a visual style that wasn't cookie cutter or any of that stuff. What is the breakdown? And I know this is a pretty geeky interview for you, but like, what is the breakdown in terms of directing with your brother? Like, did he take one thing and you took the other in terms of communicating with actors or the DP?
You know, like before we actually started shooting, and I think this just goes for anyone who's ever made anything, be it a film, a painting, you know, a chair. You have your plan, and then the plan gets thrown out the window, right? So, like, our plan was, as you know, Jared had kind of talked to us. He was like, Yassir, you know every word, you know every beat of this thing. Like, just like handle the actors and the what you think the comedy is, and like Isaiah, you handle all the technical aspects. Like, really make this thing shine. And like, so on day 1, so I should say, the eve of day 1, Isaiah gets COVID, so he can't even be on set for a week. Yeah, so I'm just there while he's watching through a monitor on his laptop, you know, giving me instructions. But I say that to say that, like, you know, it really gave me a crash course in what I needed to be doing and how I felt about it, blah, blah, blah. Then once Isaiah showed up, all that stuff kind of went out the window, and we were both just so we really were in sync a lot of times, and there were things that like I would miss that he would pick up, and things that I would pick up that he missed, and like it really, for what I thought was going to be like pretty defined roles, it became like this kind of just like organic extension of one another. It was really cool. Like I really
almost like your brothers or something.
But even then, I would weirdly argue that like even as brothers, like we clash more as brothers than we do as filmmakers. You know what I mean? Like it was actually really nice.
Oh, you were saying some of these characters are based on real people, obviously. Have these real people, including your sister, have they, I mean, they've obviously probably seen the film at this point.
Yeah.
Any interesting feedback you've gotten from them?
Well, you know what's so interesting is like, so our cousin Walt knew from Jump Street that it was him, right? Because at some point I think we literally had to ask, like, "Hey, we're using your name, and like, don't sue us, I guess." But like our sister, you know, she saw it when it premiered at South by Southwest, and then, you know, it came out again, or it actually premiered November 1st, streaming theaters, whatever. And so she watched it again, and she was like, "Oh, you guys put me in the special thanks?" And we're like, "Yeah, you're our sister, and also like Skunk, the character, is like based on you a lot." She was like, "Really?" And we're like, most of the things this character says, you've said, and or like plot points of their life are your life. And she's like, "Whoa." So like it's weird, like, because those are kind of the two biggest. It hasn't been that much just because they are family, but you know, you have little, like, there's little jokes from like that I've taken from my friends when we were teenagers and put them in, and like, you know, dump these. So now when my friends hit me up, they're like, "Oh my God, like I can't believe you remember that," or vice versa, you know? So, it's really been fun, in terms of like, and again, this is corny, but it is a weird love letter to like our lives thus far, you know? And
Yeah.
like, and it's just been fun seeing the reception to that stuff too. Like things that you never think people would be into or dig are like some of the hardest hitting jokes in the movie, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's you also mentioned premiering at South by Southwest, and I was like, you know, for like geeks, like, you know, like pop culture geeks and stuff, like South by Southwest. Oh my God, I've dreamt about going there one day, even just to watch movies there. Was that such a cool experience? And like, how nerve-wracking is that when you release this out into the world and not just the collaborators on the film itself?
I mean, it's interesting because it's you know, I never really, there's like events in my head that I was like, or just certain milestones, if you will. I almost said tombstones, which is crazy. There's certain milestones in my head.
Wow, really
yeah,
dark,
right, yeah. There's like milestones in my head that I was just like, you know, I don't want to do X unless I'm there with a thing, or I'm in it, or whatever. It's something that I've created. And South by Southwest like was just one of those things. Just kind of film festivals in general. It's just like, I don't want to just go as a spectator. Like I want to, and look, absolutely to my detriment sometimes, but I was like, I want to go and, you know, be on the level of the people that are there, you know, if I'm meeting someone. And so getting that invite and then going, and to the second part of your question, like it was nerve-wracking in terms of like, oh God, like, you know, we've been in this thing for so long, and I won't get into the like specifics, but we had a really hard time with the studio in terms of like what they thought the movie should be after we had already shot it. And like,
yeah,
again, we were like, you read the script, like there's not that much veering from, you know. So anyway, so you're just like, oh God, like, are we going to get proven right, or are we going to get proven absolutely wrong, you know? And it's still so far the biggest theater that I've been an audience member of where it's played. It's been playing in a lot of smaller theaters, you know, like 75 or less, but this one was like 300 people or whatever, maybe more. And I mean, it was just thunderous, and I was like, oh my God, like we did it, you know what I mean? Like, and like, look, it's nice to have like the distribution now, and that more people can see it and all that stuff. So like, again, it makes me happy, and seeing the, you know, more reviews and that people dig it, but like at least getting that part of it and just being like, okay, no matter what happens, the thing that we set out to do was to make a funny movie, and like that is at least mostly objectively happening, right? Like very few things do we get the opportunity to show the world, and the world doesn't say like jump off a cliff or whatever.
That's what I try to always explain to the audience of like what an ass kicking you can get in Hollywood or any creative endeavor. It's like ass kicking after ass kicking, and the audience gets to see sometimes the best results of that, not realizing how much you got your ass kicked through the process. And I was also wondering, like, you come from the stand-up world where you get to most of the time be in control of your own writing. You know, of course, you're going to have like a 5-minute, 10-minute, 30-minute slot, but you are in control. And then now with writing, you have to have collaborators. You have to have people that are giving you money that have some sort of say. And how has that been over the years? Because you've had so many now different jobs. How hard is that to get used to? Do you ever get used to there's good collaboration and then there's really hard collaboration? How do you handle that?
I would argue that there's kind of only bad collaboration when money is involved. You know, it's like because it's the ultimate level of borrowing money from someone, right? You know, like if you ever like, I don't know, lent someone like $10 and then you see them like eating ice cream and you're like, did you spend the $10 I gave you to eat ice cream? Like I thought you were like getting gas to go to work. You know what I mean? Like this is driving me crazy. And so you already have feelings about what that money was supposed to be doing. So now it's like, you know, thousands or millions of dollars, and you're dealing with not only people who are in control of the money, they also are telling you what they think, not just what you should be doing with the money, but also what they think the thing you are making that you had the idea for should be. And you're like, wait a second, like, shut up. You know, it's like, you know, if I give you $20 and you're like, all right, great, I'm going to use this to make some cheeseburgers. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't like cheeseburgers. And you're like, well, the thing that I told you I was using the $20 for was for cheeseburgers. And I'm like, but you know what I actually like? I like when people stitch American flags from scratch. And you're like, what are we talking about? That's not even close. It's not even food. You know what I mean? That's what it is. So like, I will say in terms of like, when it's just work, you know, you work on a show, you write on a show, you act on a show, whatever, I don't mind it because I'm like, look, this is what I signed up for. It is what it is, right? But when you're like, okay, this is, you know, essentially my dream, and someone's like, I'm going to tell you what to do with it. You're like, it's, how do you define my dream any more than it is my dream? Why am I allowing you to speak? You know, it's crazy. It's great. That's it.
I mean, and it's so I would just finish this book on, we brought him up earlier, but Kubrick, and, you know, Kubrick got, you know, to a place where, I mean, he fought, you know, for that space where eventually he didn't have to fucking take any Warner Brothers notes. He said, you just give me the money. And you know, I'll put up my own money if I need to, and you do not have any say. I get final cut. I even tell you how to promote the film. And he did that up until his death. But like, that's one in every billion filmmakers that get to do that, right? So like part of your job is then suffering the slings and the arrows of the industry to actually maintain the vision that they hired you to maintain.
You know, you'll never understand it. You'll never, not you, I'm just saying that
no.
As the person who experiences it, like you will never understand how someone can be like, I love you, I think you're brilliant. And you're like, great. And they're like, here's some money. Do everything against your spirit in your body that is telling you to make something good. You know, it's bizarre. Really weird. I'll never get over it. I'll never, ever get over it. Truly.
I'm going to point this out in the intro at the beginning, but before, I just want to also remind people it is playing in select theaters right now, but you can drop like $6-7 and get it on Amazon Prime. You can get it on Apple right now. And it's a 94-minute really quick movie that I think you are going to totally dig. I'll give you your money back. I won't give you your money back, but I'm just going to say that right now, that I think you'll actually I think we need things like this right now, especially. I also wanted to ask about the music in this film, because I really liked the music. And then I was kind of blown away. You had a Gorillaz song at the end where I was like, whoa. I was like, how much did we spend on the Gorillaz song? Like,
but check this out. So, by the way, you're Bud now forever. But check this out.
Yeah, what's up?
So we had not a gigantic music budget, but a music budget that somehow mysteriously disappeared. And that's another thing you learn with working with these studios and stuff, that like all of a sudden all these numbers that they have set aside for you just kind of go bye-bye. And you're like, wait a second, like we have to finish this thing, you know? So I say all of that to say that we hired Keegan DeWitt as our composer and scorer, who is absolutely phenomenal. And then we just like tried our hardest to like, so there's like a montage, a sad montage in the middle of the film that was written to Forrest Gump by Frank Ocean. And I was like, this is the one, like, I was like, I'll put my own money in, whatever it takes, but like, this has to be the song. Then they're like, hey, you have no music budget, and Frank Ocean is just like not answering our calls. Like,
yeah,
okay, great.
He disappeared after Coachella. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So it's just like, you know what? Fair. So we just kept finding the best comps we could. The intro of the movie is an Atlanta artist named Shawty Low, who has a song called They Know. And that's always been there, that song. And I just never thought we'd be able to get it. We got it for relatively cheaper than we thought. And then getting the Gorillaz song at the end, our music supervisor, Bruce Gilbert, I guess has like a connection to them and got them to allow it in the film as like a favor. Because there's just no way Dirty Harry, which is like one of their biggest songs.
I was like, maybe he's best friends with Damon Albarn. Maybe. I
think Bruce might be, but it wasn't us. So yeah, like, and again, like in a like, especially in smaller movies, like you just are doing everything you can to make it feel like it costs more than $3. You know what I mean? Like the entire movie, every single bowling alley is the same bowling alley. We just redressed it, added some things, and like that. You know what I mean? Like it's the exact same location over and over and over again. So you're like, maybe a song will trick people into thinking that this is a different place, you know? And so, So anyone who is listening to this, like, try to figure out your music almost before you start shooting. And, like, really, the rest of the stuff you can make up for, I promise.
No, I mean, I thought the music was perfect. A couple other things that I wanted to say I loved, or this, there's a line of a couple lines of dialogue in there about Applebee's commercials where they'll pair people up together, and you're like, these people would never be friends in real life. And I back in the day, I was in a TGI Fridays rib commercial, and it's like the exact, and it was like it was a great day of my life because I got paid, and Janusz Kaminski, the DP of like Spielberg's
what? I'm
DP,
sorry, of like War of the Worlds.
Yes, and like of Saving Private Ryan, all this stuff.
Minority Report.
Yeah, he's directing the rib commercial, and so you're already like, but they always pair you with three people that you know, it's like you. I mean, it's just this blend of friends that when you watch the commercial, that exact line of like, how these people would never probably be friends. What is going on here?
It's like, and look, we all get it to an extent, right? You want to cover all bases. You want to make sure that you want everyone to know at home that Applebee's wants you to eat their ribs, or TGI Fridays wants you to eat their ribs, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, and it was like, sometimes you're like, okay, that kind of person represents like 0.01% of the population. I get why you put them in there, but like, here we are, you know what I mean? Like, but I tried, and like, again, like this may be corny or whatever, but there's also just like stand-up bits that I never got to do or that I wanted to. And I just wrote, and this is like, it depends on what kind of comedies people like, if you're listening, but this is a comedy that has, I counted per page. I was like, if there's not at least 7 jokes per page, then on a script page that has average 14 lines of dialogue, then I need to punch it up. So I tried to make in my heart tried to make every single line of dialogue a joke. And if you watch the movie and a line in there is not a joke, it is because the studio cut it. And I mean that sincerely. Like the entire movie was just supposed to be couplets and triplets and quadruplets. It was just a joke, and then a joke answer, then a joke response to that. And so there's like,
is that like road, like you being on like a staff writer or like working on like, the Carmichael Show or Girls or any of these things, does that kind of road test you and teaching you how to punch up something potentially quickly, or even on set thinking on your feet? Or is that already just kind of ingrained in you from doing stand-up most of your life?
I think so much of it came from stand-up, and then also, my brother, who's a co-director, also comes from sitcom writing. And then everyone in the movie almost was a comedian. And like, I will say, I had such little ego going into like actual filming. Like, it was just like best joke wins. You know what I mean? Like, truly. Yeah. We had our first editor, who was phenomenal. His name is David Dean. He like managed to create jokes out of the edit in ways that like I hadn't even thought of. And I was like, oh my God, like, and again, so I was just like, whatever keeps people laughing and busy, that's all I care about. I described the movie when we were first talking to people about it. I was like, it needs to be a comedic rocket ship. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want it to the thrusters to fire, and then you are just on a trip until like it explodes in outer space. You know what I mean? Like, I don't like, and again, like, there are some lulls in the film that like are there for dramatic effect, but like my number one concern was like, if you are not laughing, I've sat in enough screenings now that like I've pinpointed to the minute and to the second where I know people aren't gonna laugh, and like God, I just wish I had my say and another joke went there, but like, to me, it's like, and I think this is for all comedies, and of my experience, like it really is, laughter is a it's not an exercise, but like laughter is as an ideal should be about momentum, right? Like especially stand up. Like if you're just telling one joke every kind of 40 seconds, you never get to the big laugh, because unless you have like a huge surprise waiting for people, but you need to build and build and build and build. And so like, that's the approach I took in writing it, at least. And then when we were directing it and editing it, like I was just like, another one, like, and yeah. I really hope it worked,
Well, there's even visual jokes. I mean, I was like dying when they were coming in dressed up like the TLC, TLC the band. I was like, oh hell yeah. I mean, there's just like little treats all around this film, which I really appreciated. Do you have like 10 more minutes? Are you still good?
Oh yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So also another thing I loved, they have this they have a card shot of like this guy character, Billy Slick, and he has this bowling ball that looks kind of like a watermelon, I think, that like clean up.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, for some reason the actor's face in that cracked me up every time you guys used that. And then just the end with like Billy, the Three Kings, all of these people popping up. I thought that was truly awesome. So now this is out here in the world for everybody to check out, and I really think you're going to dig it. And then I just wanted to talk about a couple of other things just with your stand-up, because I was going watching old clips of yours today. And are you still the self-proclaimed sexiest guy that you'd constantly beat up in the 10th grade? Is that still you?
I've aged out of it a little bit. I still find myself to be sexy, but but I'm also at a point where like I know, like if a 23-year-old saw me, they'd just throw up on the sidewalk. So, like I was there's a nice, like, and I just think this is truer for men than women, but like men really only have like 10 years, when that 10 years starts and ends is kind of up to the person. But like I do, and I think hopefully society has changed enough now that like, and this is so gross, but it's like women go from like young women to like a hot middle-aged lady to like a MILF and a da-da-da and like blah blah blah. And I just feel like men, like, we really got to get it together. We're not handsome for as long as we could be. So
yeah, the only people that works on are like old actors like Paul Newman, rest in peace, and all that, where they're like Brad Pitt keeps getting weirdly better looking, but it doesn't happen for like me, the average man out there. Like there is that period of time that you really have to, and there's like the great routine that you do that when was the last time you looked at yourself and you said you were looking at yourself in a mirror and it was like, I thought I was a 7, but I was a 9. God, I am gorgeous. And then in the same routine, you're like, but then you look at yourself and I'm ugly as hell. Like you like, it's great. I mean, so that all comes from just like you and your thoughts, right? Like, is that who Yassir is that person that can be like, insanely like in belief of themselves and their powers, and at the same time like, oh my god, I'm disgusting, I'm horrible?
I think that, and I talk to my wife Chelsea about this a lot, but I don't think there's any point in being an artist or a creative or actually not even that, just being good at anything, if you don't believe that you can be the absolute best at it. Right now the world will like punch you in the stomach and say like you're not, and that's when you're like, okay, I'm worthless and I suck. But like I do believe that like if I'm going to set out to make a movie, I have to genuinely believe that like I can make the funniest movie of all time, I can write the best joke that's ever been written, all that stuff. And so, but yes, those two wolves live inside me. There's a very narcissistic, cocky wolf, and then there's also a wolf who's gonna die of starvation because they don't have the confidence to like go chase their prey.
No, I mean like that you nailed so many of my feelings in that routine of like, God, if you look at me in the right angle, I think there's really something here. And then but that's like through my whole life, and then it's just like that constant push pull of doubt and extreme belief, which I always love. I think you speak to that a lot. Stand-up wise, what are you working on right now? And I know that's a whole different creative process. Is that something you will ever leave behind if you get enough success in all of this?
I think that I think any good stand-up comic, no matter how successful they get somewhere else, should always be ready to walk away at any moment. I don't think that
just like the Robert De Niro in Heat, be away, walk away at any moment.
The moment you are recognized in another field, walk away from stand-up. That's not worth it. Now, that being said, it is stand-up, no matter how hard it's been at times, how relatively little success I've had in it compared to, again, film and television and acting, like all these other things have like taken off. And not to say that stand-up has like left me high and dry, it hasn't, but it is my first love. It is the thing that got me everything. Now, whether I have 12 specials or not is kind of not the point. So I will always, even in the times where I don't do it for months at a time, the moment I'm back up there, I'm like, I hate this and this is the best feeling in the world, and like I really try to mitigate those feelings with all the other things that I'm doing. And so I don't think I'll ever truly walk away from it, because in my phone right now, I haven't been able to do it in a few weeks, but it's like every idea I have, I like jot down, or, dumb idea. Like, I just want to make sure that, like, I also think stand up more than anything comedically keeps you sharpest, like just performing in general. Like, I think that, like, if you were a comedic actor or whatever, like if you're not doing stand-up, if you're not an improviser, if you're not a sketch performer, you're just not going to be as funny as the person next to you who is doing some sort of performance. Like, there's just nothing like a live call and response. There's nothing like a live, throwing your material out there, an immediate, like gauge on whether this is good or if it's not, And so, like, if I can't live with that kind of, because, like, you know this, you can just like sit up in your room or office and write until the sun comes up and goes down and blah, blah, blah. And you can think like, wow, this is awesome. But there's still no audience for it until you've passed it along to whoever. And so, like, I am someone who needs some sort of instant response, now.
Stand up is so immediate. Like, it's so immediate, whereas like even the the gutter, like it can take years to get the response. And you're gauging on your own personal compass, and that's like with stand up, I imagine you get it immediately sometimes.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, like, I do still, like, I came in as a comedian, stand-up comedian. I still want to do a special. I had a plan to do it this year. I turned 40 this year, and I really wanted to get it out this year. I'm still trying for that. We'll see. But you know, with the gutter and all this other stuff, strikes, blah blah blah, a lot of stuff got put on hold and or pushed. So there is the plan to still do a 1 hour special. Now whether I put it on YouTube or actually sell it to like a streamer or whatever is kind of up to the universe. But like I am gonna get one done pretty soon here.
You will not be able to answer this question, I'm sure, but I'm a Marvel geek, and maybe Kevin Feige will immediately come out of somewhere and like in this interview. But what is going on with Armor Wars, with Don Cheadle, War Machine? I believe you're writing and potentially also producing this. And I mean, are you allowed to say anything? Are we even going to be seeing this in 2025? Where are we with that?
Okay, here's the thing. The one thing I can tell you is that you definitely won't be seeing it in 2025. That is literally all I am allowed to say.
Okay.
But
2024, end of 2024.
Yeah, exactly right. They're gonna drop it on Disney Plus.
Like a Beyonce album, just in the middle of the night.
That would actually be nice. A nice surprise Marvel drop. We learn too many things now before the things even start filming.
Yes.
We already know who's in them, and it's just like that part of it is just like no longer fun anymore. Like, you remember the first time you saw Thanos at the end of the first Avengers, and you're like, oh my god, they're like going for something, you know? So I to answer your question, like if Don Cheadle isn't allowed to answer, then like I'm definitely not allowed to answer.
Okay, I wanted to try.
Look, it was a good. I love that you went for it. So that's nice.
Yeah, you're like, well, this interview ends now. You brought her up a couple of times. I'm a huge fan of Chelsea Devantez, your wife, and I also wanted to take this opportunity. I've spoken about her book a couple of times on this show, but her book, I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but I am going to anyways, is so damn good. And the way she writes about your wedding was so special. I mean, there's so many great things. I mean, there were like parts of this that you guys are going to cry if you read or listen to the audiobooks. It's so damn good. And you already listened to her on Glamorous Trash, but her talking about your wedding, I just thought was so beautiful because it seemed like a day that you guys really collaborated in the best, weirdest ways of both of your personalities.
Well, you know, like Chelsea, I'll say, is, and as someone who's talked to her already before, you'll know, she's kind of a like go hard or go home person, and that's with everything. Now, that being said, when I first proposed, like, and I've made it a point throughout our relationship to say, like, please don't invite me to like your friends' weddings. I don't want to go. I do not enjoy weddings. Like, I get it. There's salmon, you know, there's some candles. Like, just
I get it. Yeah.
Leave me alone. I don't want to go. She loves weddings. And so when I proposed, the one thing that I knew is that like it has to be, and this is very narcissistic too. I was like, I want this to be entertaining for me and us also. You know what I mean? And like, she is a performer through and through. She's a stage manager through and through. She just knows what she wants. And so I told her, like, hey, this is what I think aesthetically we should be going for. This is what I like. You tell me what you like. And we just kind of blended our visions. I was actually filming the gutter as we were planning this wedding. We stopped filming. We stopped filming the movie 10 days before our wedding. And so Chelsea took 99.9% of all the wedding stuff. Like, truly, I will forever be in debt to her. I was kind of just like throwing ideas and then be like, okay, goodbye. But she handled it like not just with like grace and poise, but like I truly like we talk about it all the time. I'm like, damn, like, no, I wish there was time travel so we could just like experience our wedding again. Like, we had all the food we wanted, like so many of the people that we wanted were there, and like it was just like actually fun, and it was a party versus like a wedding, and like
or an Applebee's commercial.
But here's the thing: I would argue most Applebee's commercials are more fun than weddings. Like off top, like you can have more fun than an Applebee's commercial. But no, I mean, like, and again, for those of that read her book or know her work, her podcast, she's brilliant. She's legit.
Really, I mean, she's really nice.
And so
I talk about her a lot because she really is one of those people. When you read her book, you're like, oh God, you've always been like this. She gets shit done.
Yeah,
and I didn't I've talked to her before. I didn't know her story, and it was one of my favorite books of the year.
You didn't know her story. I read the book, and I like walked into the room, and I was like, "I didn't know any of this." She was like, "You didn't?" And I was like, "You've literally," and I was like, "It's not just like you've tried to tell me." I was like, "You've never come close to telling me so many of these stories." And she was like, "Oh yeah, well, this is me." And I was like, "Okay, great." I mean, I'm learning with everyone else.
I mean, it made me feel like the laziest person in the world. I mean, it's like she moved to New York to do to write on Jon Stewart's show. She like lived like 2.5 hours away, had to commute like 5 hours a day just to do this every day. And I was like, God, the passion that takes. And that's why I think you guys, I wanted to bring that up, because I think what a really, I mean, cool couple that you guys, I mean, appear to be. I don't know you both personally, but I really love, I love reading about your love. And then finally, what, since this is a pop culture show, what are you currently watching and listening to? And by the way, it's been a little bit obviously of a weird week, and thank you for reminding me to laugh at the gutter. So I obviously recommend that for everybody else, but what are you watching and listening to this last couple of weeks?
God, it's so interesting, because I feel like we're in a, like, this is going to be a bigger statement and then I'll answer. We're constantly consuming things, right? And because we're constantly consuming things, we can never remember anything, because it's just like things have to be so good before you're like, I know, right? Whoa. Now that being said, I'm going to mention some comic books as well, but I'm going to do it all.
Hell yeah.
So, comic book wise, I've been reading Absolute Batman and Absolute Superman. They're the DC reboots. They've been phenomenal. As a matter of fact, last evening, something that I did not expect to enjoy, and no shade at all, I just didn't think it was gonna be my vibe at all, was My Old Ass.
It's on Amazon Prime.
Yes.
Yeah.
I ended up really digging it, and I was like, "Oh, that was like fun. What a fun, nice thing." The Penguin on HBO Max, really, like, it's just a mob show, but they did,
by the way, if you look at like stories like old Batman ones, like Long Halloween and like all of these things, they really get you in that world, and it shows that I mean, Batman's not there at all, you guys. I've been talking about it on the show. I'm like 3 episodes from finishing. I'm hoping to do it tonight, but I just love like bringing, like, it brought me into a world where I forgot about this world, which I think is like the highest compliment. And I just keep going, like, how the F did Colin Farrell do? I mean, you just fully forget it's him.
Yeah, dude. And like, that's when, and again, to like the Susan Sarandon, Paul Reiser, Darcy, and Shamik of it all, you like watch people who are good at acting, and you're like, oh, like, I just gotta show up and say a thing that you told me to say. Like, they're the character, So that all the stuff that the young people like, Chelsea put me on Chapel Roan, so I listen to her.
That's a great pop album.
Yeah, So
does she ever make you watch reality TV?
Here's the thing. She actually doesn't make me do it. I just kind of do it on my own. I don't know if you're a Survivor head, but
oh, hell yeah, dude,
Survivor. I actually feel like this season is like a return to form, and because like the past two before this, I was kind of like, but it was like 2 or 3 ago with Caroline, who
Caroline.
That was, phenomenal. And we go back, as we're watching one, we also can currently watch an old one at the same time. So we've been doing that. Man.
Wait, this season, that dude that threw John Lovett under the bus in the first episode, he's still, what's his name? He's still there. Andy. And now I'm scared. I'm like, is Andy gonna win this thing?
No, it's the thing like with Q last season, where like your stupidity gets you very far in this game sometimes, but the moment it's done, like the moment the well of your stupidity is dry, everyone's just like, okay, get him out. Like, you know what I mean? And I just don't think Andy's got what it takes, because like he doesn't actually have a plan. If he did, I'd say like, oh, maybe, but like you've never gotten the moment where Andy's like, wow, like, it's a joke, it's a ruse. Like, it's just like him drooling in a corner.
You just get him on the beach, like scribbling with a stick, like trying to make plans. It was so bizarre.
Exactly.
There was something so comforting this week about watching the food challenge. I love watching them like
Dude.
barter over like the food challenge stuff.
It's the best. And then what's her name? Is it Sue? Is Sue the one who's like,
Sue.
I'm only 20 years old? And we're all like, okay, Sue, you gotta.
And Sue goes, I think they believed me. And then she like gets an idol and spills like the red paint all over her hands. And she's trying to make excuses. And she's like, oh, I cut myself. I it's wild.
It's the best. And like that. And for what people say, like the reason reality TV works is because they've taken all the best parts of narrative TV and made you believe that it's real, right? Like they know when to hit your setup, when to hit your when to hit your misdirect and your turn, your act break. Like they have all of it, but we are under the guise still that like this isn't being manipulated and blah blah blah. Like it's awesome. It's awesome. I catch it as Chelsea's watching it, but Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, of course.
It's like a John Waters film this season. I keep saying it's like the most bizarre. It's like between that and Twin Peaks.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue that Twin Peaks is more grounded than Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Heather Gay is weirder than the Log Lady for sure.
I'm gonna make a T-shirt that says Heather Gay is weirder than. It'll sell 10, but those 10 people will love that.
They'll love it, man. You'll make money. I just like truly, I like look. Horrible person has done a lot of wrong, but that show will not be, and it's fine right now. It will not be it will not take the throne again until Jen Shaw is back. It's just like you just need her. You just need her.
It's like leading up to, like, if Batman, it's like eventually he's going to meet the Joker. Joker's going to come back at some point. And Jen Shaw's prison thing keeps getting reduced sentencing. So she's going to be out by the end of 2025, I think. And then Bravo's going to make some real tough decisions, which will be really interesting. But I think at this point, I would have said no a year ago, but now I'm like, oh, she's coming back definitely. And it's going to be wild. Dude, thank you for spending so much time with us today. This has been such a treat. I hope to talk to you again one day. And man, The Gutter, you guys, it's on stream. I mean, you can pay for it right now. I'm sure there's going to be a streaming deal at some point, but I would rather you just
Hulu in February. Okay. Sorry.
Well, I was going to say, I'd rather you'd pay the $7.
Watch it now than see it again on Hulu.
Way to screw it up, Yassir. Okay. Well, and by the way, just go follow Yassir on all the platforms. He'll be able to like keep you up to date with what he's doing. But I cannot wait to see what you're doing next. And I hope to talk to you again one day, man.
Dude, you know what? You keep saying one day. We can just chat whenever, bro. Just let me know. Okay, let me know you're around.
Okay, I'll call you later, man. Yeah. Okay. All right. Survivor airs, and then we'll talk about it afterwards.
Awesome.
Bye.
All right, take it easy.